What's up guys, Jake Lowry here, and today we are very excited because we're going to be using a $102 fishing lure, a fishing lure that I have not ever used before, and we're gonna see if we can't hook into some giant fish on that lure. Now, that said, I have actually never used this expensive of a fishing lure. I've tested a lot of swim baits between $50 and $75, so I'm curious to see if the $100 fishing lure is actually worth $100, if it has that much better action, if it catches that many more big fish. Those are all things we're going to be testing out today. Now, that said, before we take a look at this lure, why don't we take a look at the spot, because I think it is going to be nuts today, guys. All right, guys, we're here at a lake that is connected to a state park that is loaded with big fish. Outside of my personal best bass, this lake is where I usually catch my biggest fish. Now, that said, on top of that, it is fall and these fish should be eating big swim baits, and they should be eating a ton of big swim baits. So we are here for a nice shad bite that hopefully we can get some big fish to eat. One of the most exciting things about today is that it is Thursday and there is nobody here. Last time I was here, we had hundreds of people at the state park and probably 10 to 20 boats on the water. So that makes me think we have odds to fish the entire lake, get the first cast in a lot of the good spots at this lake, and then hopefully hook into something amazing. All right, guys, I have the Cluch Eco Glidebait right here rigged up on my swim bait rod. This thing comes in at 6.25 inches long and 1.5 ounces in weight. Kind of small to justify a swim bait rod, but I wanted to use it on heavier line because it came in at a $95 price point. Before we start fishing today, we're gonna test out the action of this thing. I'm looking for a couple things in this glidebait. I'm looking for a very consistent action. Is it easy to fish? Right? And then I'm also looking for, how does it sink? Is it fast sinking? Is it slow sinking? And then does it draw fish, right? 6.25 inches isn't very big in silhouette, so it's got to have to draw fish from a different reason, and that reason is likely going to be because of the action. That said, I'm going to get this thing in a short little cast here, and let's see what this thing is all about. Okay, right off the bat, I notice a couple things about this glide bait. One thing is that it's very buoyant and bouncy. It almost goes up and down, up and down, up and down really quickly in the water column. The other thing is that the tail is very snappy. It's not a very smooth glide. It's a much more choppy glide that you wouldn't necessarily get out of some of those larger, cheaper glide baits. So I'm definitely gonna have to learn how to fish this thing, but I don't think that it's like a crazy scam or anything like that. I just think it has a different glide than what I'm used to fishing. Okay, and right off the bat here, guys, on my third cast, I'm kind of already used to getting this thing to get a good glide, and it has a crazy action. It almost doesn't move forward and only moves side to side as you retrieve it. So it is nuts. The sink rate is kind of standard. I would say it's probably on the quicker sinking side when it's not moving, but it does move up in the water column very quickly, so I'm not going to be too concerned about getting a ton of snags with this thing. I'm in a lake that's filled with grass and not a lot of rocks, so snags shouldn't be a huge concern, especially with a $100 lure. The only thing that really concerns me about this bait is the consistency of the action. A lot of times on these smaller glide baits that I've tested in the past, they tend to roll, and that's because their shorter length causes them to not be very stable. Whereas this one, being shorter, seems like it doesn't have a rolling issue, but it does have an issue where if you don't retrieve it in the proper way, it tends to kind of not give you any action at all. So that is definitely a curious thing. One thing I haven't tested yet with this glide bait is I'm curious to see what it does when I burn it, right? Because sometimes if you have a lot of followers and you burn that bait, it does give you a reaction strike out of those followers. But right here, the burning action on this thing is actually nuts, guys. This thing moves very consistently side to side and looks like a lure that you could fish on a burning retrieve, which you can't say out of a lot of glide baits. I feel like a lot of glide baits, you're more likely to burn it in and then not get a good action out of it. Got two other old guys on the water, and they weren't very happy to see me. I tried to say hi to them, but kind of just stared at me, which is a funny thing. Some old guys get grumpy when you got other people at a fishing spot, which is interesting because a spot like this, I mean, there's usually like 10, 15 boats on this water on a Saturday. So you get here on a Thursday or at a weekday and there's only one other boat. Really should be worried about someone else. So the best part of this entire lake, in my opinion, is this far bank. But it looks like there might be someone on the water, or it's like a tent or something, maybe 200 yards down the bank. So why don't I just go across here? There's a tree in the water straight across that for some reason seemed to be really, really good not too long ago. So let's head over there, and I'm just gonna be grinding all day to see if we can't hook into a monster, absolute monster on this glide bait. This lake has changed by quite a bit, man. There's a lot of bubbles and stuff on top of the water. A lot of, you know, kind of nasty dead grass and stuff too. So pretty interesting situation we got going on here. I don't really know what happened. So right by this tree was like the absolute money spot. So let's see if we can't pick one up early on said glide bait. That would just be absolutely exhilarating. If I started hooking fish on the first spot, man, would I get excited. I was throwing the wake bait here at this tree, and I like hooked a fish that was, I think 4 or 5 pounds right off of it, and then saw a fish kind of swim up into the tree after that and threw it, didn't move the bait, and the fish hit it right away. So for some reason, I must have timed this tree like utterly perfectly or what, but it seemed to produce. All right, let's keep moving. I don't want to sit still in any one spot, you know, if I don't get bites for that long, but we have quite a bit of water to cover still, which is a good thing. And we have quite a bit of potential today. See here. One thing that's going to be interesting to find out is like, what does this colder water and colder air temperatures do to the fishing, especially in the fall, right? Like, are these fish going to be more active? Are these fish going to be spread out? Are these fish going to be all in one spot? I'm curious to learn how that works out. One thing I've like randomly forced myself to do is fish glide baits and swim baits all types of the year. So I've kind of learned how to fish them in different conditions and different tactics. And the fall is like one of those times where I've had good success, but I haven't really kind of got it dialed in versus like the spring or the summertime. All right, I'm gonna head kind of across this way over here. There's a couple log jams that are pretty much right up on the bank and in some deeper water. Maybe the fish are chasing bait up those. There is kind of a concern. There is a guy that's way up there on his kayak, it looks like. I don't know if he's fishing or what he's doing. Usually though, and one of my favorite things about throwing swim baits is like in heavier pressure situations, you can almost guarantee that not a lot of other people have thrown swim baits around this kind of stuff. And the reason that's good is, you know, people can throw Senkos or wacky rigs all day long, and that's not gonna get that big fish to move, right? Until you throw a swim bait into that spot. Right here you have just a ton of small branches in the water coming off of this tree. You got wind blowing around this little point. If I was a big fish, I would be right here. Chasing 6.25 inch, 1.5 ounce purple shad. If I was a 10 pounder. That's what I would be doing. One thing I want to do is, I'm in 7 feet of water. Okay, ready? All right, so it took about 7 seconds to sink 7 feet. So that's gonna give me a gauge to where if I see a big bait ball on the sonar, a lot of times I'm seeing 5 to 10 feet. Count it down 7 seconds, and then I know what depth my my lure is at. There we go. That's a good cast right there. I have never seen something like that in my entire life. I have never seen something like that in my entire life. That was nuts. That was a monster fish, just blew up right next to me. That was nuts. Okay guys, that means 2 things. That means they're chasing bait, and it also means that my kayaking skills are getting better. Because for that fish to be right next to me and him blow up on it, that means he didn't see me or wasn't necessarily spooked of me. So, good kayaking skills right there. See if we can get one. Come on. Is fishing pay to win? We're gonna answer that question. All right guys, so I'm pretty much done fishing this kind of 200-300 yard section of bank I just did. Saw that one fish that was super aggressive on the bank blowing up on something, so that was pretty interesting. I want to try the other side of the lake. There's a spot that I was stopped at last time because someone kind of cut me off at the last spot, but essentially a short paddle over there, and I think there's going to be potential to hook into some fish. That side of the lake is also still shaded, so could be that this sunny side is worse. Not entirely sure. So let's do a little mix up over there. We'll head deeper towards that direction, and then I also have like a third spot I kind of want to audible to as well if this bank doesn't produce any fish. So shouldn't be a long paddle. So far, I think this swim bait is pretty good. It's an interesting bait for the conditions I'm fishing it in, right? It's a smaller glide bait and you kind of have to fish it pretty quickly. It doesn't have as good of action when you slow it down a whole lot. No knocks on the bait. That's just kind of the bait that I purchased. The caveat with that is it doesn't have a big silhouette and this water is kind of murky, right? So makes it hard for the larger fish to see this, especially if they're kind of deeper in the water column chasing bait. That's, I think, kind of the biggest thing holding me back right now. And of course, going into the shade is gonna make the fish even have a bigger challenge seeing this thing, but this spot just looks so good over here. I had to try it. Now, one of the other kind of things going on concurrently is there was a guy over here this morning. I see he's kind of kayaking around in the same spot since he started, but that could have, you know, been an issue as well, where this guy may have went all the way through all those spots and either spooked the fish or caught a bunch of fish. This could be a really good spot to keep in my back pocket just for this lake in general. But I have a monstrous laydown right in front of me, which looks like it could have some big fish in it. Tell you what, shade feels nice. Big gar. Need this thing to sink a little more. Close can I get this thing to that spot? I'm gonna bring this thing right along this big heavy pine tree. One of two things is gonna happen: snag, or fish is gonna come flying out of it. Let's see if I can get it just a little deeper in there. This is at a campsite, so it could be that the people that camp here fish this log a lot and they're pretty pressured. Or it could be that there's just a 10-pounder in here and you got to throw in it 10 times before he bites it. There would be a silver lining to today if I don't catch any fish, and that is that $100 lure might not be worth it. I feel like if I bought a $100 lure and then came out here and caught a 10-pounder, that would be bad. That would be an overall bad thing for fishing. I feel like that could be within the realm of possibility, but I feel like overall good for my wallet is I come out here with a $100 lure and don't catch anything on it. All right, guys, so my 1 hour impression of this $100 lure is actually very positive. It has some really good action, and I do think it casts really well and is weighted very well. Only kind of concern I have with this is more related to the spot. I just don't think this lure is tailored towards the spot that I'm fishing at today, and the reason for that is I have to fish it quick, and this is a muddy water spot, and I feel like those don't mix with swim baits. It might mix with some other baits, but not necessarily a bait that is smaller and harder to see. So that said, I feel like, you know, I might buy a couple other $100 baits. I feel like it's not a crazy giant investment, and I'm not disappointed. $100 is a lot different than it was, you know, 5 years ago, even 10 years ago. I feel like there's like more and more wildlife activity going on the further I go back. Jesus, man. Ow, I domed the back of my head with that. What the heck? Ugh. Man, that'll freaking ring your bell. It's a full contact sport right there. Oh, and I have a backlash now. Wonderful. It's like, what the heck is that? Just complete domage All right, guys, the rest of the day was a pretty significant struggle. I fished this bank for a while, then I got to a spot that was kind of full of lily pads, so I decided to stand up. Did not get any fish off of these lily pads, although I did see a bunch of fish jumping along the surface. Then I came across a pretty cool bank that had a lot of brush and looked like it would be really good, but again, no bites at all. Pretty much after fishing that bank that looked really good and didn't get any bites, I decided to call it a day after like 4 or 5 hours of fishing and absolutely no action. All right, guys, we have arrived back at the vehicle. That is going to wrap up the day of fishing, man. I don't know about this $100 lure. I feel like the action was pretty decent. Was it any better than $50 or $30 glide baits I've used in the past? Probably not. Now, that said, the fishing was atrocious today, or at least the fishing with glide baits was atrocious today. I didn't even see a fish. That said, you know, there are going to be days when you're fishing big baits that you catch a giant and you catch a lot of fish, and there's going to be days where you're fishing big baits and you don't catch anything at all. That is kind of the nature of throwing those types of baits. That said, if you like this video and you want me to keep making videos of big baits and expensive fishing lures, make sure you guys like this video and then also subscribe if you haven't. And I'm going to catch you guys next time. If you enjoyed that video, check out my YouTube channel where I have a bunch of fishing and outdoors related videos. Also, don't forget to click subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss on any future videos.